Good evening, welcome to the North Bennington Prudential Committee meeting. This is a reorganizational meeting tonight, that's why I'm opening the meeting. So then we have called to order. First on the agenda is oath of office to new members.
And we've taken care of that, yes.
You good? Okay.
Yep, we're good.
So election of office.
Shall we mention the new members? They're our old members, Kim Kroll, who ran for and was elected to her 2-year seat
Welcome back.
going
Thank
forward. And Matthew Patterson, who ran for and was elected to his 3-year term
Okay.
seat.
Again, welcome back. So at this time, I'm going to ask for nominations for the chair of the North Bennington Prudential Committee. Are there any nominations?
I nominate Ray.
I'll second that.
Are there any other nominations for chair? Hearing none, I'll close that nomination. I'll ask for a vote. All in favor of Ray Mellon being the chair of the North Bennington Prudential Committee? It says graded school district.
It
This
is,
must be an
North
old
Bennington
form.
Graded School
Well, no,
District
it is.
Prudential Committee.
It's
Okay.
all of
Whole
it.
thing.
Aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Any abstentions? You're abstaining?
Yeah.
Okay. Ray has been elected the chair of the North Bennington Prudential Committee, and I will hand the rest of the nominations over to the chair.
All right, so we need to have a vice chair. Matthew has been the vice chair for a number of years. But the floor is open for nominations.
I nominate Matt.
My second.
Is Matt willing to serve? Okay. And no other nominations? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor of Matt Patterson as the vice chair of this board for the coming year?
Aye.
Aye.
That's all of us, so it's unanimous. We need a board secretary. This office is distinct from our secretary who actually takes minutes at most meetings, which is Lori, who's also the clerk of the district. Last year that was Tim. We can do this by acclamation if he's, I suppose, if he's willing to accept
Nominate
the.
Tim.
Okay,
I'll second that.
yeah. Any further nominations from the board? No? All in favor of Tim Schrader as our board secretary?
Aye.
Say aye. Aye. Since that's all of us, I won't just request any nays or abstentions. Next point of reorganization is the SVSU board representative.
Nominate Ray Molyneux.
It says and alternate. Are we
Yeah, it's still.
Are we
alternate.
still having
At least
alternates?
through June you will, yes.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay. Any other nominations? Hearing none, call the question. All in favor of my serving as the SVSU representative for this board?
Aye.
Aye. That's all of us. And we need an alternate. Now, this I have missed very few meetings, but it may happen. So we need someone that's willing on short notice, most likely, to try to attend a meeting. They're held monthly at the end of the month, basically. Although sometimes it varies a little bit.
Yeah, it's usually planned for the fourth Wednesday of every month.
Right. Thank you.
I failed Ray miserably this year in that department. If anybody else wants to do it, otherwise I will do it.
Anybody else want to dip their toe into being on the SVSU board? I'm not getting any volunteers. I have to appoint someone? Well, I guess I can appoint someone. I think I'll appoint Maria.
So who gets policy
No,
then?
heck,
You know
you're
I
gonna
love
get
policy. Come on, Ray.
Matt said he
And
would do
actually,
it.
I'll do
the
it.
problem,
Matt said he
the
would do it.
problem is that both you and Kim have childcare issues.
Matt said he would do it though.
Matt said he would do it, okay.
What time's that meeting?
7 o'clock.
usually.
Yeah.
Usually 7.
Sometimes an executive session in advance of
I could be an alternate.
Okay.
that. We can't do that.
Make it up,
Yeah, you
know.
actually have to,
Oh.
well,
You
you
have
can
to-
still
you have to
go
be-
and
All right.
if I couldn't, but I
Right.
couldn't do anything.
You can't be a voting member.
Okay.
I'm not sure you can, the alternate can vote, is that right?
I'm not a legal scholar, so I don't want to rule on that.
Well,
I
but-
think
I
if you
seem to
elect,
remember something about
yeah,
that.
and I thought they could, as long as you are, you know, if
Not
they're a
there.
duly elected alternate at this meeting. That was the compromise from February of 2013 that
Mhm,
the state
right.
board ruled that
Yep.
gave that authorization.
That's right.
Yeah.
And though they, of course, didn't remember it when it came up,
No, so I do think I mean, I can talk more during my report, but I do think some changes may be coming, so whoever this alternate is,
maybe a short-term position.
short-term position. yeah.
Okay, well, thank you, Matt. And I guess we'll have the board vote to confirm you. All in
Aye.
favor of Matt serving as the alternate
Okay.
for the SVSU for us?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that's that. Appointments to SVSU committees, well, we participate in 3: policy, personnel, and budget. And Maria, I assume you would be willing to continue on policy since you're
Yep.
well ensconced there.
Mhm.
You have the Terry Eric Chair of Grammar and
Will that continue to exist after June also, or is that?
Yes, it will continue to
Okay.
exist. Personnel and budget have been my bailiwick because for us, personnel relates primarily to SVSU personnel, and I'm on that board. And budget,
Same.
it's more that I have, a lot of it that goes on in the budget meetings is the SU budget. It's not individual budgets. So it seems like both of those are things I should participate in.
Nominate Ray for personnel and budget.
Second.
Actually, I can appoint this, and I'll appoint myself to this.
Awesome.
Okay, now we need a resolution to authorize the chair and vice chair, or in fact, the board secretary can also do this, to sign for board business, primarily meaning signing for warrants in months we don't have a meeting.
So resolved.
Second.
All right.
On that.
Any other possibilities that the board thinks of? Hearing none, all in favor of authorizing these people to sign these warrants and other business for us?
Aye.
Aye.
Hey,
Okay, that's all of us, so that's unanimous. Then we could have a discussion of schedule for board meetings for the year. We've traditionally, like most other boards, taken July off. Do almost all of them take
July
July?
and frequently February after their budget is set in January.
Yeah,
up
right.
As the run-up to town
Right.
meeting.
I would,
We could do
recommend
both
that.
of those,
Yes.
actually.
I know that I won't be here in July. I'll be gone most of July.
Right, so
Let's
that
not do July meetings.
suitable, yeah.
And then let's maybe propose a 6:30? Did we,
Hmm.
you don't like that?
Well, I teach till 6 on Wednesday, so
Oh, okay.
7 allows me to actually eat between.
Yeah.
We could do 6:30 and I can bring a sandwich. It's not a big deal.
Well, I have a problem with that because I have to get done with my
Your work.
cleaning activities.
Then we do 7.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it helps me to get here from
Right.
Shaftesbury.
Because Shasberry's at 6:30.
6:30, so I do a half-hour at Shaftesbury, then
Well, that may disappear,
You're right. You're
but
right.
we don't know
And
that.
right
at
now,
the
it's not a
moment.
conflict because Shasbury has moved to Thursdays till the end of June, and by
Uh-huh.
then, you're right. Wait,
We may not
no
be
more
doing that
Shasbury
anymore.
board.
I'm not ready to bet the mortgage yet, but.
No, neither am I.
No.
But, so we'll plan on not meeting in July or February. And, we had occasion to miss another meeting this year, I think. Did we?
That was February we missed.
That was February?
I think it was.
Okay. Yeah.
So
We had a meeting in January, not one in February. So, that coincides with our actual schedule for last year, I guess. So, we'll move on. That's the reorganization. Do you want to, you've got, can we get you to fill this out? Or do you want to?
I like filling paper out.
Oh, yeah, I know. So now we have public comments, and I see no public here, except you, and you're not a member of the district, so. So Jen's not gonna make a comment, so, we'll move on to board discussion of ballot article results. Anybody care to offer remarks on the ballot?
I think we missed something.
No? Public comments?
Didn't we miss the oath of office for?
No,
we
we
did
did
that.
this because
No, I
they
missed it.
previously
Yeah.
took oaths last, 2 and 3 years
New
ago.
policy that if we've already done it,
Okay.
So
We
I
just have to
asked, and
reaffirm
then
Prior to
Got
the
it.
meeting, we
would follow
Alright.
these,
went over,
and
yeah.
they
Right.
signed it.
So we did, one thing we
Late
didn't
that one.
do
We
because I
would've
don't
saved
have
time
the
if we
form, which
brought
is,
it up, now we've just used all that time up.
Oh,
Okay.
sorry.
one thing we did not do was deal with, what is that, Board of Ethics,
Allegiance.
Board Ethics. But in this particular case, this is, since we've been all on this board for whatever term we've been on it, we've all agreed to these, that particular set of rules previously. So I guess we could have a resolution saying that we will, as a group, just now, we will abide by the
Ethics.
is that the VSBA's? The VSBA's, ethics for board members, rules.
So resolved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Good.
We're all gonna abide by the ethics.
Ballot, yeah, what?
I just missed that. I was filling out your paper.
We resolved to all abide by the ethics, SBSA ethics rules.
Vermont School Board Association's ethics rules.
So, anybody want to offer any comments on the ballot results? You need refreshing, it's right there, the articles are right there on the front. So, I will comment that, although do you have the numbers with you, Lori? I left that ballot in my truck.
Yeah, I mean, I can find them pretty quickly.
Well, it was about 3.5 to 1 passage on both the budget and the tuition rate, which is pretty par for the course. Maybe we've done a little better sometimes in the past, but it's still a very substantial, it's 70+% voting in favor of the voters who attended the meeting and voted. And then there were 200+ votes for both Matthew and Kim for retaining their seats.
Who got more?
I'm not going to tell you that. do not think that's
I must be the least
important.
popular, because I remember last time
So
Kim
I
got
have
more
the-
than me.
Really?
Or was it Maria that got more than me?
Right, I have the, Article C was 197
By a
yes
substantial
votes
amount.
Yeah.
and 58 no votes.
Yeah.
And that was for the budget, and Article D was 199 yes votes and 54 no votes.
Yeah. So that's a pretty good margin.
And then I have Kim and Matthews, and they were really, really close.
Yeah.
Just how close were they?
What a sensitive response.
All right, guys. As just to restate what went on in the floor meeting, we had reports from that PowerPoint that Tim had produced for the board on basically on the budget itself and comparing it to previous years. And that seemed to be well received. Then we also had a report from Tim Newbold about the village school and its activities. And we received a compliment from Bob Howe about the overall presentation of both parties.
Which apparently doesn't come easy.
Yeah. So, and the meeting lasted about an hour and a half. And we had some refreshments. And it was here in the library, which was very comfortable, as opposed to the often a little cool and dimmer light in the gymnasium. So, given the level of attendance, I think this is probably a good place to have it, because it suits. Everybody can see. We can project right onto the wall there with the overhead projector, and it works pretty well. And no, we didn't bring up moving the meeting to a different day, because that's usually been defeated the last few times I've asked about it, and I totally forgot it, really. So, anything else anyone else wants to say? So thank you, Tim, for
Thank you.
putting it together and acting like a pro presenting it. That was very
Oh, it
good.
is my job.
All right, so if we have nothing else to say about it, we'll move to the finance section. The treasurer's report. Do you have remarks?
As
Mary?
you can see from the January and February, there was nothing really out of the ordinary for either income or expenses, fairly typical for this time of year. I will only note that for the last 4 years, every month and every year end, I have had the wrong outstanding balance for the QSCAD note. Due to Alice Perry noted this when she was working on something else. She noticed this, and it is just due to a misunderstanding of something 4 years ago when I took over. I thought the balance that I had at the time was the balance. Well, it wasn't. It was the original. So there have been three.
Okay,
three
yep, that explains why it
payments.
was up so high for so long, yes.
Yes. So the balance actually is $215,000 on that,
Right.
and that now will tie, as of next month, that will tie to the audit report that you just sent out too.
Yep, okay,
So,
so that,
but
yeah, we
here
have
for-
how many, we have till 2025
Yes.
to pay this off, right?
But for 48 months, it's,
Okay,
Great.
I'm glad it wasn't a big problem.
no.
Was that the bond for the stuff out back?
It's for the
It's
newest-
for the-
for newest
the-
stuff we
The
did.
tank and the boiler controls and burners and additional work on site,
Taking out the asphalt,
Right.
building the drain walls.
the playing field and back, the drive-through, and a major improvement to the the entrance to the gymnasium by creating a ramp so that
Yeah.
it's handicapped accessible that way, and also easier to get certain things into the building there. Yep.
So we have 3 more years of $30,000 payments, and then we
Mhm.
have 5 years of 25s.
Okay. Great. Budget status report. We're not gonna go through that, but it was in our packet. I did look at it, and then I noticed that for, our major expense, 80% of what we spend money on is tuitions for children. And we look like we're actually under budget by 120,000 or so. And I expect that that will go into our fund balance, along with the contingency that we have in our budget. And we may have again a substantial fund balance next year when we come around to doing our budget again, as opposed to the one this year, which was much smaller than that 120,000. So that should help us next year when we're budgeting in terms of tax rate. Authorization for executing contracts.
So-
This is something,
That's the motion, and there's the reason what that is.
okay.
So the auditors noted that clear authorization was not given to the superintendent or my designee to sign contracts on behalf of the board, so the remedy is that we've been bringing this motion to each board. Don't sign a lot of contracts or service contracts for this board, but
Right.
we're bringing it to every board.
You do it to others.
Yeah, and it also lists specifically what contracts I must bring to the board, like employment contracts and things like that.
Yep, okay. Purchase orders, agreements for consulting services, grant agreements, contracts from routine operation. And any contracts from public bid process or employment agreements. So, basically paraphrase the resolution, but I'll read the motion. To authorize the superintendent or her designee to execute on behalf of the North Bennington Graded School District purchase orders, agreements for consulting services, grant agreements, and other contracts arising affecting the routine operation of the school district. Superintendent or designee shall not execute any contracts resulting from a public bid process, not execute these, any employment agreements, and any long-term contracts without express authority from the board. So basically this gives the superintendent the right to execute some sort of pro forma contracts and agreements, but maintains board authority for the public bid process contracts, employment agreements, long-term contracts. Okay.
Got it?
So why since normally I sign most of the contracts, this is in case I'm not available, is it? Or Matt's
Yeah,
not available? or-
I questioned that myself, because, the employment contracts, we have board chairs come in and sign employment contracts, but this is the wording we received from the auditors for, I do sign some contracts, or my designee would be Renee signs some contracts, mainly for you're hiring a consultant engineer to come in and do a study of your HVAC system, and that isn't part of a public, it's under the dollar amounts for public
Right.
bid process.
Yep,
Those are things that typically we may sign.
yep. Well, okay, I don't, we did do, we did the boys' bathroom over last year, but I signed all that
Yeah.
stuff. This is a stopgap?
I don't see us changing that process, but it's
Yeah.
just complies with what the AOE found when they came down and did their study, and what, that we didn't have a clear designate. And so that our auditors then noted it in the audit.
Well, yeah, of course, we are a non-operating district. We don't have that many transactions like
No, you
that.
don't.
Yeah. And no employment agreements.
I'll make the resolution to adopt,
Okay,
the resolution.
all right. As I read it.
So that's what
right.
I write, is
Yeah.
Matt said to
Yep.
adopt the resolution.
So, a second?
You can
I'll
just keep that.
second.
Thank you.
You're all set, okay,
Yep.
thanks.
Any further discussion? I think we understand it pretty well. Hearing none? All in
Aye.
favor?
Aye.
Right?
Aye. Okay. Where's my agenda? So, I think we have never actually done this. We've just verbally talked about getting financing for FY, the following fiscal year. But perhaps we should note in our minutes that we've requested the treasurer to arrange for interim financing for FY '20. And I'll state that as the motion, and I need a,
That is typically
We don't
available
actually-
in your June meeting.
yes, I'm just
Okay.
saying you're authorized to
Yes,
go
thank
ahead
you.
and undertake that, because there will be,
Yes.
you will be doing that in
Mhm.
end of June area, right?
Second.
Anybody comments? All in favor?
Aye.
That's all of us. Okay. I said we would talk about the audit report, mostly because I don't think we actually need for the auditors to,
And that is the
Be made
question,
available.
whether you want them here or not.
yeah. And, it's good to talk about it. It's, as I mentioned before, talking about it, it's a funny document because most of the material in the document comes from the finance office at the SDSU. And you have to have basically trust in those folks, which I do, and in order to put much credence in the audit per se, because they do not do wholesale testing. They don't check every entry. They do review some transactions. They review the policies that are being used by the finance office in setting up these statements and in doing transactions, and the internal controls that the office has, along with the treasurer, although the treasurer's never mentioned, but the treasurer is part of the internal control, so that money isn't somehow fraudulently dispersed to a party that's not supposed to go to. All that stuff is basically in the control of the district through the people that we pay assessments for to do this work, and to the treasurer that we pay a salary to. So what is it they provide an opinion on? And I'm going to have to find the document here. Yeah, no, I've got it on. I'm having trouble with this, learning this computer, so that's not it. That's not it. Okay, well, you got that. I'll use it. Okay, so the first bit of information that comes from the auditors in the report is on page 4, where they, what is it, isn't it? No, sorry. Yeah, that is it. Page 4, which I did send this out
Yes,
to you,
you
the
did.
link to it,
Yeah,
right?
right
Mhm.
now.
Okay, so the second paragraph, management's responsibility for the financial statements, is basically what I just said. Management's responsible for preparation and presentation in accord with the generally accepted accounting principles, which are under the name of GASB, which is Government Accounting Standards Board principles. And that includes responsibility for the design, implementation, and maintenance of internal control of the transactions that go through the budget, and fair presentation of these financial statements in this audit. The auditors say their responsibility is to express opinions based on our audit. They conduct it with the auditing standards of the government auditing standards issued by the Comptroller General of the United States. And they perform some procedures to obtain enough evidence about amounts and disclosures in the financial statements to come to a conclusion that they're free of material misstatements, whether due to fraud or error. But they don't give you a statement about the effectiveness of the entity, the office of the finance office's effective, whether the internal control is effective, and they don't express an opinion about that. They do review whether the policies are appropriate, whether they follow GASB, whether we're getting sufficient accurate information, the information we're supposed to get under GASB, and they believe that they had enough evidence to, according to them, to say that the following opinion. In our opinion, the financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects the respective financial position of the governmental entity activities, each major fund, and the aggregate remaining fund information of North Bennington Graded School District as of June 30th, 2018. And the respective changes of financial position, cash flows thereof the year, then ended in accordance with accounting principles accepted in the United States. At the end of the report, after all the schedules, which were all prepared by the business office, there is another element that is due to the auditors. A result, a final statement. If I can find this. Sorry. The original statement was on page 3 and 4, and now we have on 42 of 43 the auditor's report on internal control or financial reporting and compliance with grants and other standards that we're supposed to. Internal control over financial reporting, that they don't express an opinion on the effectiveness of the school district's internal control, but they didn't find any deficiencies. However, they safeguard themselves from any possible line of attack on their line of work, saying that, however, material weaknesses may exist that have not been identified. Compliance, they say that the results of our test disclose no instances of noncompliance or other matters that are required to be reported under government auditing standards. The purpose of this report is solely to describe the scope of our testing of internal control and compliance and the results of that testing, not to provide an opinion on the effectiveness of the internal control or compliance mechanism. So, along the way, in the part of this that is put together by the business office, there is very interesting stuff about, if you can stand to go through it, on fund balances, our assets, our expenditures. We never expend our full budget, and we didn't last year. But because we had, we ended up with a slighter fund balance to carry over to the budget, as you know from when we were doing the budget for FY20. And that tends to go in cycles. This coming year, it's down, but next year, the year following FY21, it'll be up, just like it was for FY19, in terms of how much it contributes to paying the budget and reducing the tax rate. So it also tells you how much the district paid for superintendent services, for special education, for early childhood education, technology services, human resources administration, and financial management services. On note 9, on page 38 of 43. They're also, of course, in a comparison of actual expenses with budget earlier in it. And I don't really think we have to go through all that, because I'm going to take their word for it that, and my trust in the business office that we in fact are doing as well as they think we are. So, you got any questions, Mary? Because you're the
No,
person
I-
most
I
likely to
actually
ask them.
looked through it today with what time I had. I always try to pick, a number here and there and see if I can track back to it.
Right.
And I did not see anything that
Right.
that I felt I couldn't track back if I tried.
Right. Okay. So I usually look at those in order to figure out where the fund balance comes from, just so I understand it. I have to refresh my understanding of it every year. And it's a figure that's a residuum of a number of things. The amount of income and resources you have coming in, which always varies from the budget because there are adjustments made in the general state support grant. And this particular audit shows $70-some thousand were collected from delinquent taxes. And that responsibility is, Mary, that's her responsibility, and she did a fantastic job. And that is part of what contributes to the extra money, our reserves in terms of income or revenue versus our actual expenses, but we also didn't spend the full budget. And those things together create that fund balance going forward for this year to cover, usually that's taken out at the end of the year, basically. If you're going to use it, you're going to use fund balance at the end of the year. And I think we're in pretty good shape. Based on that.
The residual due to delinquent taxes will certainly be a lot less
Yes.
this year and hopefully in every prior year, for the mere fact that there aren't that many.
Right.
So there was a bit of a backlog and some people on very long-term plans, but those are cleared.
And the fact that that is now true about these delinquent tax accounts means that, our budget will be, our ability to generate surplus will be affected to the extent that those numbers, that amount of money on older debts beyond the current year is not there anymore, so we can't count on it.
No, there is
We
one
were never
small
counting on
amount.
it, but
There is
we
one
won't have
small amount to a couple $100 from a
Right.
prior year, but other than the year we're in, but there is nothing other than that.
Right. All right. And can you pull up the agenda again?
Okay.
Because I think we're about to move,
Here you go.
right?
Yeah. Oh,
Consent agenda. Anyone want to propose that we pay our bills?
So
And
moved.
approve the minutes?
Second.
All right, is there any discussion about warrants or minutes? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. That's all of us. So, whoops, I just went back to, yeah, I got it, thank you. Superintendent's, policies, sorry, forgot policies. We have a warning for number 5185, anaphylaxis. Maria.
Not much to say about it. I think they just hold it in line with newer Vermont
Requirements.
Health Department requirements and,
Should
Yeah.
cut out a lot of
Seems
stuff.
like most of the policies actually deleted.
Yeah.
and put into admin regs.
Okay.
I think part of the problem with the policy was it was trying to direct people that weren't necessarily trained.
Right.
So they were trying to pull that out.
Okay.
And make sure that it wasn't, yeah. I think the biggest discussion we had was making sure that they kept in the parental notification.
Yeah.
But they had it before, it was unclear when that was gonna happen, and they wanted to make sure the child was taken care of first,
Yeah.
and then the parents were notified, so.
Right,
And this
and so a lot of that could be done in administrative regs. Because
Correct.
it will vary or change over
Correct.
time.
Is
Mhm.
this, this is a warrant?
It's a warrant,
I'll
yeah.
make a motion to warrant policy 5185, anaphylaxis.
Oh, second.
Thanks. Any comments? Seeing none, all in favor of warning the 5185 anaphylaxis policy?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Superintendent?
Evening. So we continue to pursue two budget avenues, or pathways. One for 4 separate elementary school districts. The 4 meetings and votes were held last week. All 4 budgets passed for the separate districts. It's kind of like an insurance policy. We don't know what's going to happen.
All right.
The transitional board, which is made up of the chair and clerk of each of those 4 elementary boards, are now the transitional board members of the Southwest Vermont Union Elementary School District. They were sworn in earlier this month. They're going to have their second meeting next Monday night on the 18th, which coincides with the date that petitions need to be returned for anyone who wants to run for what is known as the initial board. So the initial board will be, those members would be voted in at an April 23rd ballot vote on that day, April 23rd. It's, the transition board, made up of the clerk and chair, had to first warn a vote. No less than 30, no more than 45
Days in advance, yes.
days in advance. The previous Tuesday is school vacation week. It was decided that that might have an impact on it, so it's the 23rd. So that continues the pursuit of the second pathway of whether there will be this unified district come July 1. There's a lot of work to do on that. most importantly, is a unified budget for that district. There is a draft budget known as Draft
Mhm.
3 right now, which is quite simply taking the line items of the 4 elementary districts and merging them into one. And the transition board can meet and do budget work, but they cannot wand the budget. That has to be the
Has to
election.
be the initial.
That has to be the initial board, so if they're elected on the 23rd and then sworn in, then they can begin work to warn the budget, because that has a 30 to 45-day window also. We're looking at late May, early June, before we know if it is a union school district, if we know they will have an operating budget for July 1. The SU changes we started to talk about in the beginning. So when Arlington and Sandgate, when the state board back in November put Arlington and Sandgate under our SU starting in 2021, they gave Arlington 3 seats, which kind of raised flags for everyone, because all our current members of the SU have 2 and 1, or 1 and 1, two seats and 1 alternate. And that comes from an agreement in February 2013, when the SU was having trouble, my understanding of the history, the SU was having trouble getting quorums. So they petitioned the State Board of Education to make that change of 2 and 1 for an alternate, because otherwise they had to get 18 people together. So now it's 11. So when the state board gave Arlington 3 and Sandgate 1, then we sent a letter to the state board asking them to amend that agreement from February of 2013, that Arlington would also get 2 and 1, Sandgate 1 and 1. What the 3 and 1 is statute. 3 seats on an SU for an operating school district, 1 seat for a non-operating. So then we withdrew that letter from the state board, because we don't know really what's going to happen with all this consolidation. Because if the Union Elementary District exists on July 1, Woodford, Shasbury, Pownell, and Bennington will no longer have seats on the SU board.
February.
There'll be
So
3
you
members
guys need to
from
sign
the
that.
new
We
board.
just approved them.
So once we see where that dust settles, what we probably will do is then petition the state board to adjust Mount Anthony from 2 and 1 to 3 as an operating. So if they have 3, Arlington has 3, the new elementary district has 3, Sandgate has 1, North Bennington has 1. That's a committee of 11. So we did get, I received contact from the state board, and do you want to be on the March agenda for the state board meeting? We said, no, not until we see where this is all going to settle, and
Right.
rather than have them change it twice for the makeup. So that's where that is. And the other thing, doesn't impact you, but it may. At the Bennington board meeting earlier this evening, they did appoint a new principal from Molly Stark Elementary School. We've had 2 co-acting principals this year, when Dr. Mugitz left us at the end of last year, kind of unexpectedly, and it was really late in the season for trying to find a principal. So Kate Abbott, our director of childhood education, and Donna Colley, a Monument Elementary School principal, have been serving as co-principals there, as well as their other duties. So Donna Basic from Arlington was appointed this evening by the Bennington School
That's
Board.
Bill Basic's
Yes,
wife.
it is. Yep. So she will start July 1. And the other change at the SU is when Laura Boudreau became the assistant superintendent, with Donna Leap retiring.
Mhm.
So at the SU meeting last week, Melissa Senecal, who was our data coach, was appointed the new director of curriculum, instruction, and assessment for the SU. So a few changes going on, and people who are getting on board to their new jobs and responsibilities. That's pretty much what I have. Unless you have any questions for me.
So the process, I just a question about this process of this. How's this board of the clerks and so forth?
The transition
styled?
board?
It's transition.
transition board, which is the chair and clerk of the four
They're
existing
not,
elementary.
they're not the originating board, they're the transition. board.
Transition. And then the initial board are the ones that are actually elected by them.
Now, is this is this written out, I haven't
Yes,
looked back, in
yeah,
the
we're-
706 statutes? 706
So we're,
sections?
I don't know if it was 706, or what the Act 46 statute that spelled out the process we have to use to get what's called the initial board, and in the orders we got from the state board also list, there's staggered terms in the election
Yes,
of this initial board.
Yeah. Right, so that
Some
they
members
can generate overlap.
Right. And I mean, that, we kind of glossed over that. I mean, the Articles of Agreement, they come from the default Articles of Agreement that the state board approved, that the AOE wrote. And that could be subject to challenge. That could be the deadline to change the Articles of Agreement for this July, for operations of July 1, 2019, was February 28th, and we missed that deadline because when we
Right.
got the order to stand down, we were going to have the initial organization meeting back, I think, January 15th, which would have given maybe the organizational board,
They could have.
they might have gotten a
changed.
change, because
Yeah.
there's some that, particularly Bennington, not happy that they have two seats on the
Mhm.
board,
Their representation.
and so doesn't
right?
Woodford.
Yep.
So, and it is a hybrid model. That's how they can get away with the proportional, not being proportional vote. It's similar to
Yes.
Mount Anthony. There's protected seats from each town, but
Mhm.
everybody in the district elects those
Right.
people. So that's the hybrid model, which coincidentally is a result of a lawsuit filed against Mount Anthony in 1975, I'm told. So,
Yeah,
Um,
I think it was even filed by someone in this district, but
Yeah.
I don't.
the last
actually know
it's
that.
Barnes versus Mount Anthony.
Barnes, yeah.
And it's not Frank Barnes, I directed.
No, it's not him.
So that, so moving forward, those articles of agreement could change. Like, there's a lot of people who think the name is a mouthful, Southwest Vermont
Right.
Union Elementary School District. Let's change it. That can all happen once this board, if the
Once it's
initial board
organized,
does
right.
get elected and they are then operating. As you all know, there are challenges out there. The judge did not grant an immediate injunction, so we're moving forward as I have to under the law. I have to,
Yeah.
go down both
Yeah,
pathways and who
We
knows what will
understand that, and I think the dual pathway is about the only way you really could go.
happen.
Um,
So hopefully we'll be ready for whatever happens, but there are union issues that need to be worked out.
Yeah.
Woodford
I bet.
teachers
They
and
don't have a
principal
union there,
do
do
not
they?
have a union. They pay close to what the contract is, but not the same. Seniority lists are by school district and now emerging for school districts. That's something that will be impacted and have to be worked out in.
You have to shuffle the
Okay.
decks.
Might have to, and where you fall in that shuffle, right?
That's important.
Yeah, and how, we'll pick about how you feel about it. And those are just some of the more obvious issues, but, luckily we have a unified policy manual between those districts, and, except for Woodford, a unified teacher's contract, except for when it comes to seniority. But I'm looking for pluses. I look down the road and see what happens. I've been a big advocate of saying that why then will we run all elementary schools the same if we are now a unified district? And maybe this gives us an opportunity to have certain focuses or magnet schools among those elementary schools that then people have school choice to.
Is there choice
attend.
in the default agreement?
There is choice in the default agreement, but the mechanism still needs to be worked out, how that we can't,
Well,
And the default changes, when we did our own work on the Articles of Agreement, we put more protections in for closing schools. It was 5 years before you could do
Yes.
it, and then 2 consecutive votes 1 year apart, and the default agreement is 2 years.
yes,
Yeah.
right.
They were swindled.
So it's been, in some ways, it feels like this is all I've talked about for 3 years,
Mhm.
and it's far from over. And then, I know
It's-
finance and
It's
HR
4 years now,
Yeah.
really.
are really concerned about the rush between now
Close.
and operation in July 1.
Right. Now, it seems clear to me that the schools would continue operating, but the difficulty is figuring out who's in charge of them, right? I mean, you're in charge of them, but who's your boss, so to speak, for the
Well,
board?
it's, what's really kind of awkward now that the transitional board is operating, and then if I have an initial board in February, then do I really have two boards overseeing the same entities?
Yeah, okay.
But others have gone before us, and we'll get through it.
Yes, and we have no financial incentives
Lost all-
whatsoever. Do we
lost all the
get
financial
any,
incentives,
do we
yeah.
get any assistance with transition expenses?
No? We
And
would've had
plus, they want you to do it in a short period of time.
Yes.
I've written to my senators, state senators, about this, because I think that's crazy. It's just punitive.
It does feel punitive a little, that, you
Mhm.
know, that.
At this
you know,
point, why would we be doing
The
this?
4 towns, you know, voted it down, and you gotta do it anyways,
Mhm.
and you lost the financial incentives.
How large were those incentives?
How large?
How large? Were they significant, the incentives?
Originally, they were.
Yeah, the tax incentives, and then there was, $150,000, transition grant is
Mhm.
the
Mhm.
biggest loss. Tax incentives,
Mhm.
you know,
It was
Or
10
eight-
cents.
could be
8,
elusive,
6,
yeah.
4,
6 cents.
Yeah,
2, 0.
Mhm.
but it was really designed, you know, not so much for savings, but to cover costs
Mm,
for
true.
consolidation and
No,
transition.
it was
Yeah.
designed as a bribe.
The grant was
Come on.
designed to make
And I
the
think-
transition.
And I think, I always felt those
rest
tax
was a bribe,
initiatives, incentives were going to be elusive at best, because you have a reduction on a figure that you don't know yet because
Right.
of what the increase may be.
Right.
Exactly.
Correct. And
Sounded good, Bill.
But it sounds good, yeah.
oh, I was going to make one point. You know, I know that the West River Mud District, which is a consolidated district, they've done some things that people are not happy about already, in a very short period of time of operation, because they've taken 6th graders and they're going to bus them all to Ladbroke, is it? I think that's their high school facility, put them in there, and a lot of the smaller schools, of course, taking the 6th grade out is a pretty big hit
Well,
on their numbers.
my advice to the transitional board and to the initial board is to do no harm.
Do no harm, right?
Yeah, and
Exactly.
let's take time to do it, that's why the budget process should be simple for the transitional board. Approve the combined budget so that each individual district can continue to operate with the funds they have, and then once we see
Right.
how this all plays out, before we start talking about any type of, you know, major shifts.
Another issue in that same district is that they decided, they went to a choice model for the elementary schools, and that apparently is playing havoc with Jamaica, actually. They're looking at losing quite a substantial number of kids to
Yeah. And for-
Townsend.
And for me, choice is always an equity issue too. We can say we have choice, but if we're not providing transportation with that choice, then it's an equity issue. It's not everyone has the ability to choose a school and then.
Yes, and that is, I've seen lots of emails about that, because you've got people without much in the way of money who are, their child is in the 6th grade is going to be up at Ladbroke without transportation home in the evening if they stay for extracurricular activities. So it makes for a lot of problems. Equity is not what it sounds like there. All right, well, thank you. It's kind of 4 years away from the initiation of this process, and we have what you might have expected, something of a gooey mess at the end. But I do think you are doing the right thing here in terms of a dual process until we get to a fixed position. Okay, my report, well, basically I need authority to sit down with Tim and negotiate the tuition agreement, which will not be language-wise any real difference from current one for next year. There would just be an amount difference. And last year we had negotiated an upset amount, what I would call an upset, which was the number of students that we would have to pay for at that rate. And we have not talked about that in this context. So I don't know whether maybe we should do this in an executive session, but at this point, what I need is authority, and if Matt can do it with me, we would go in and talk to Tim and come back with an agreement that we would approve.
Well, we already voted on the number, so
Yep.
it's just, I kind of think we're already there. I think we did discuss.
Well, I know we're there on the number, we didn't talk about anything else, but we can talk about it.
Yeah, I thought we actually did. He maybe hadn't taken it to his board, but.
Right. So, I'll ask you, will the board authorize the chair and the vice chair, if he's available, to sit down and talk with Tim Newbold at the village school and arrange the tuition contract for FY20?
So moved.
By arrange, you mean bring back to us? And
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll
I'll
come
second
up
that.
with what we think has been agreed, what we've talked about and what works for us, and we'll bring it back and we'll approve it in open session here at the board.
Works for me.
Okay. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So that's all of us. Then we have a section here about discussing goals or process for the board. Basically, I'm thinking in terms of the second item, board business, education, code of conduct. We agreed to the code of conduct. Education, I am supposed to have 8 hours.
With me, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how we're gonna make that happen.
They do we'll be getting an email at some point soon from the Vermont School Board Association. They'll do a joint conference up at Lake Maury for board chairs and superintendents. I'm not sure of the date of that. That's what some of the other board chairs.
Is that
do.
next fall?
I want to say it's going to be late spring, but I don't have a date. for
Late
it yet.
spring,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, if it's the end of May, I can't go.
Yeah. I've not seen it yet for
Yeah.
what.
All right, we'll see about that.
It's one of those statutory requirements that doesn't have an enforcement arm to it, so it's, it's
Right.
there, but there is no, they don't take away your
You're
chairmanship
supposed to
if you don't.
you're supposed to try to find a way to
Right.
do it. But, I was thinking about this the other day. I was thinking, well, the amount of time I spend on this and the amount of research I do on it,
You make the 8 hours.
I think I've done it many times over. But I would be happy. Actually, I think this would be an interesting meeting to go to because of what's going on.
Once I'm aware of the date, I'll make sure and share it.
Okay, thank you. We have no other that I'm aware of. Anybody have another they wish to bring forward? Okay, we've got some FYIs there, which we're not going to talk about. And the executive session is, I just want to share Dick sent me the
Mhm.
final
Yep.
evaluation form. I just want them to see it.
Okay.
And it has to be an executive session because
Yeah, you
it's
don't
not
need
been
me
public
for
yet
that.
anyway.
Do you want me
No,
for that?
no.
Okay.
You haven't heard it yet anyways, have you?
Yeah.
Oh, you have, okay.
Yes, I have,
Yeah, of course you
Yeah,
did.
Dick sent me a copy.
Yeah, all right, good. Anyway, it doesn't really matter, it's not public, so,
Okay.
all right, so, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you.
Congratulations on all your re-elections.
Thank you.
They're really excited.
Is that really, congratulations? It is what happens.
And Jennifer let me borrow her glasses for the meetings. Give them back to her. Did you notice Mickey Mouse on the side of them?
No, actually, I didn't, but,
I noticed the little runs, I noticed the little, yeah.
thank you.
Good night.
Bye.
Good night.
Right.
Safe.
So,
Did you guys go into executive yet? I missed
we
it.
haven't yet.
Not yet.
So I will entertain a motion to move into executive session.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.